I'm Kim Singletary.
And I'm Rich Collins with Biz New Orleans Magazine.
Welcome to Biz Talks. Each week, we reach beyond the pages of Biz New Orleans Magazine to bring you in-depth conversations with members of the business community.
From the names everyone knows to the ones destined to make their mark, we'll dive into the top issues, best practices, successes, and failures of every industry that calls Southeast Louisiana home. On today's podcast, we talk to music manager Reid Martin. He represents Big Freedia, Tank and the Bangas, Sweet Crude, and several up-and-coming acts from New Orleans and beyond. We're going to discuss how the New Orleans music industry is dealing with the severe changes caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Some artists, like Freedia, have pivoted in a big way, while others are hunkering down and getting creative. All of them need as much support as possible from fans, the community, and the government to survive financially until they can begin performing again in front of crowds. First of all, hey, Reid Martin, thank you for being on our podcast today.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me, Rich.
Awesome. All right. So can you tell our people about Midcitizen and about your roster?
Sure. Midcitizen is an artist management firm based here in New Orleans, specifically music management. We launched at the beginning of 2018. My partner, Tavia Osby, and I, along with another one of our partners, Max Bonanno, we were part of a collective called Simple Play that was like a group of independent managers all working under the same brand. And we had other people in the mix doing other things as well, like talent buying and events. And anyways, Tavia and I were focused solely on artist management, and we were working together a lot with each other during those days. So we were doing that from 2015 through the end of 2017 and decided the move would be for us to really combine in again, like you wouldn't have known, but like during the Simple Play days, my commissions were actually going to Reid Martin LLC, not to a company. And so now it's, everything is truly combined. We we took some pay cuts, hired people, and basically staffed up so we could sign more artists. And we manage musicians. Our core, when we started, was heavily focused on managing New Orleans artists. Our most notable New Orleans acts are Tank and the Bangas, Big Freedia, Sweet Crude, Naughty Professor. We also do Alexis and the Samurai, Sax Kicks Ave, a lot of great stuff. And in 2018 and then 2019 as well, we started signing acts from out of town. And that's always been a kind of a complaint about the New Orleans music industry in general, is that if you're an artist and you're trying to take the leap, you normally have to find management and booking agents and record labels that are based in LA, New York, or Nashville. And from a business community standpoint, the complaint is that those commission dollars leave the state, they leave the city, and they go into those hubs as well. So the artist is paying their manager might live in Los Angeles, and that's where that money gets sent. So we're working on reversing that trend. We want to represent left of center, but internationally viable New Orleans talent. But we also are proud of the fact that we are a management company that's based here that is attracting clients from outside of Louisiana, and that we're building a business that's able to hire people here, create jobs here, and represent artists from all over the world and generate more income for the state of Louisiana that way also. So it's a dual mission. You know, it's to foster the talent that exists here in New Orleans, but it's also to grow a business and a music industry enterprise in New Orleans that competes with other management companies across the world.
That's an admirable goal. Can you explain to people who don't necessarily know, what does a music artist manager do if he's doing his job, he or she is doing his job to perfection?
Right. It's a great question. There's a couple analogies that you could use. If an artist were a restaurant, then they would be the chef and the manager would be the GM. You know, running the whole operation, front of house, back of house. And the chef, the artist, is the creative brains. And ultimately, you know, if the chef is the owner of the restaurant, you know, who has the last say, you know?
Right.
Another analogy would be like if we're, you know, a corporation, then the artist would be like the board of directors or the owners, and us as managers would be the CEO. And under us are the finance department, which in the music industry is called a business manager. You've got your marketing department, which is your record label, and so that, or maybe you're doing it yourself and you're hiring out your own radio people, your own press people. You've got your legal department, so you've got an attorney. There's copyrights that you're looking after. You're trying to book shows, and so you've got a booking agent that's handling that. So, again, you are in consultation with the artist, setting the strategy and the direction for the artist's career. And incoming work tends to flow through the manager, and the manager delegates it out to the rest of the team that works on that artist. But, if it's early in an artist's career and let's say they don't have an agent yet, or they don't have a record deal yet, then it's your job as a manager to wear all of those hats until you find somebody to bring onto the team. And every time you build out the artist team, there's a new person in the mix that's making money off the artist. And so the goal is that you are bringing in new team members that are, if it's a booking agent, booking agents take 10% of the gigs that they book. So the idea there is that by getting an agent, they've got more connections to festivals and they know how to play that game better to increase not only your money in the short term, but then also help you build a strategy that in the long run is going to make you more money. So you're happy to pay the 10% to the booking agent on top of the commission, the percentage that you're paying to your manager too. Same is true for a record label. That's the harder one to really decide if you want to stay independent or go with a deal. But many times a record label is going to pump a lot of money into your career in exchange for either ownership or a significant interest in your sound recordings that they're financing. They are essentially venture capital in the music industry. And so they are high risk, high reward investors. They may, a record label might, spend $100,000 each on 10 different artists, and only 2 of those pay off, and actually make their investment back, which is oftentimes why the terms in a record contract are pretty onerous on the artist. The thing is, a lot of artists don't have the $100,000 or whatever it is that they need to launch their career, so they'll agree to those terms. And additionally, hopefully what the label is doing is not only being a bank and a source of capital, but they're also providing marketing expertise. So hopefully they have in-house radio people, in-house people that work streaming outlets like Apple and Spotify. It's publicists, et cetera, that are actively marketing your recordings, because they're trying to make their money back, obviously, as well. And they're working on building economies of scale by having a ton of recordings and a staff that works all of those recordings.
So here you are. You've got this impressive roster with Tank and the Bangas and Sweet Crude and Big Freedia and all these folks. What was your plan for these guys for 2020?
Yeah, we had big plans for everybody. For Sweet Crude, we still went ahead and put out their debut major label album, which came out on Verve this year. And that was a hard call to make, because they were set up with, they were second to close on the Gentilly stage this year at Jazz Fest. It was the biggest slot they've ever gotten. And then they were booked at Bonnaroo on a really good slot. They had a lot of good festivals teed up for this summer behind their album release. And, and so it's, that was their plan. Freedia, we released a new EP on March 10th, March 13th, somewhere in there. I got to go back and look. But it was literally, we were in New York.
Perfectly timed.
Yeah, we were in New York doing press, and we had to cut the trip short. We did Wendy Williams on our last day. We did a performance on Wendy, and there was no studio audience. Yeah, it was when that was all going down. So it was wild. Look, we had big years teed up for everybody, and it all kind of came crashing down.
Is it shows, touring, the release and the promotion? Besides those things, what other stuff are you doing to help build these guys? What are you doing on the digital side?
Yeah, well, okay, yes. So before this, we're being based in New Orleans. We are a very live-centric city and also company. You know, the way I see the music business is through a live music lens. You know, and that's just because that's what we are all about here in New Orleans. We're all about that experience. And so that had always been my approach. Like, I'd rather work with a band or an artist that's incredible live that may not have figured out how to quite capture that on a recorded product yet, but like, I'd rather have that and then figure out how to make a great record than somebody that's making a great recording but is just uncharismatic or just doesn't have it in a live setting. Which in other places, you know, there are places like Los Angeles and Nashville which focus a lot more on the recorded side first and then build out things from there. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But point is, my company is one that is very much based on touring and based on signing acts that make their bones on the road. And so it hit us really hard, and it has forced us to rethink about how we approach the music business. It's obviously forced everybody, but look, I've got friends that manage songwriters and producers and that sort of thing, and they're not hit as hard because people are still streaming music right now. We sit closer to the live music side, but we sit in between like the other pillars of the music industry that are like the bigger ones that you hear about a lot are booking agencies and record labels. And then there's also management firms. But record labels are being hit, but not to nearly the extent that booking agencies are being hit. They're the ones that are really taking it. And that's, you know, they are the ones that make all of their money booking live events essentially.
Right.
And, you know, and that doesn't talk about, you know, venues and everything else. There are, again, a ton of aspects. But so strictly on the people that sit at a desk, you know, and work, the agents are the ones that are getting hit hard.
So if a restaurant had to pivot by switching to takeout and family meals, how have your artists pivoted most successfully?
Freedia has basically done exactly that. We're cooking. You know, it's depending on the artist and their appetite for pivoting has been, you know, has guided our decisions. So I'll start with Big Freedia. With Freedia, we've always like dabbled in the cooking world. And like, you know, like we've done festivals. Like one time Freedia played Buku Fest, and then we also had our own catering tent out there. So fans would walk by like, wait, that's Freedia? And we'd be cooking too, you know. And that's like when we were doing the reality shows. So there's a lot of fun tie-ins. So like Freedia has always been a fool in the kitchen. But it's just we didn't have a chance to do anything about it until now when we can't play live. So,
okay.
You know, with a lot of our artists, we started live streaming performances right at the beginning. And it was very rudimentary, like just going live on Facebook and Instagram. And Freedia was the same. So we'd do performances. But the things that caught on was when Freedia was in the kitchen and cooking. And the fans were loving it. And so we established a Patreon, which is a subscription-based model, right? To where if you're a fan of this concept, you can do $5, $15, or $50 a month. And at different levels, you get different rewards. But essentially, it's a digital cookbook. We're putting up the recipes as we go. Anytime we go live, you know, we're putting those up. And it's certainly not replacing live music revenue, but it's something. And then what we're doing now is we've taken that and turned it into a proper broadcast on Thursday nights at City Park, where we're selling real tickets. You know, we do up to 48 as long as the weather's cooperating with us. We can do 48 people socially distanced in the Botanical Gardens. And we're selling tickets for $75. I think we just bumped them up to $80 a person. So it's actually a ticketed event. We have a merch booth, and you get a 3-course meal and a free cocktail. And we've got now Rouse's, Red Bull, and Tabasco is coming on this week as a sponsor. I've got a call with Abita next week, and had a call with Community Coffee last week, and just trying to add people to it. You know, so it's not like these are big sponsorships or anything like that. But we're just trying to build something here. So it's a multi-camera shoot. It's like a cooking show meets restaurant meets I don't know what, but yeah.
And Frieda's like the executive chef of this thing?
Yeah, so Freedia cooks. So Freedia goes, there's a kitchen across the street from Neo's in Mid-City that Neo's owns. It's like a banquet hall. So on Thursdays, which is today, I'll be heading there later today. Freedia goes and cooks the entire meal, and we put it in hot boxes. We take it over to City Park, and Freedia sits down for hair and makeup and gets up, and so doors open at 7 o'clock. And Freedia tends to arrive around 7 o'clock with the food, and we have another kitchen in back of City Park at the Botanical Gardens. Freedia gets into hair and makeup, and then goes out and does a meet and greet with all the guests with a mask on, of course. And then there's a cocktail hour, and then at 8 o'clock the broadcast begins. And we have it's a 5-camera shoot, and it's live on Freedia's YouTube and Facebook. Then we've got graphics. This week we're introducing a twerk contest. So it's a real TV show. We get 150,000 viewers a week on average.
And what's the crowd that comes to the event?
It's it's New Orleans, and it's all over the map. But we're sold out in perpetuity. So we're sold out through the end of August. We're about to announce September dates and just do every Thursday in September. I expect those will sell out before September gets here. And again, yeah, this is a real pivot. Now, again, I have to stress that this is not nearly the kind of money that we make when we're on the road, and that we're used to sustaining this entire operation. So, we're making less money as a management company. Freedia's making less money, which means less money for hair and makeup, for dancers, for other team members, that Freedia employs. But it is we hope that this is something that we can keep doing when we're not on tour, even after the pandemic, so.
What are your other acts doing besides cooking?
Yeah, exactly. We've got this rock and roll band from Philly called Low Cut Connie that we manage, and they've had another similar round of success. They have a live stream concert that was running every Thursday and Saturdays, and now it's still every Thursday and Saturday, but it's only public on Saturday now. But it's it was called Live from South Philly, and then like 7 episodes in, we changed it to Tough Cookies because the lead singer of the band was always like, y'all are some tough cookies or whatever. But I promise you, it's legitimately the most entertaining live music live stream going right now, because so many of these popped up at the beginning, and it's a dude on their guitar or something like that singing to the camera. This is, again, it's just 2 people. It's the lead singer, Adam, at his piano, and his guitar player, Will. But, I mean, it's remarkable. It truly is. And, we've built this real tight-knit community around it. Everybody calls themselves Tough Cookies. We've got Tough Cookies branded merch. We also started a Patreon around it. So there's private meet and greets and private shows within that Patreon. And on the actual show, it's turned into a bit of a variety show. We've had Tank and Freedia be guests to where Adam will interview them or play songs with them. But we just had Dion from, Run Around Sue and the Wanderer Dion. He's still alive. He was just a guest. Drew Carey's going to be a guest soon, So
how do you do all the production side of doing remote guests and things on these broadcasts?
Zoom. Yeah, we recorded on Zoom. But
you do it in advance and then broadcast? Is that what you do?
Exactly. Yep. So that particular show was live, but there are a couple segments, the interview especially, which will plug in as like a pre-recorded segment, and then it'll go back to the performance aspect.
So it sounds like using live streaming and then Patreon as a way to get people to monetize it has been not a replacement by any stretch, but it's been one smart thing for y'all to do to keep momentum going too.
Exactly. To keep especially with this band Low Cut Connie and this live stream that they're doing, there was an article on live streaming that came out yesterday by Rolling Stone. It was the big industry-wide piece where they interview heavy hitters, superstars about what they're doing, and major companies about how they're seeing the landscape shift. It was like a business to business piece, like what you're doing here. And the first 3 paragraphs were all about Low Cut Connie. The Washington Post has covered them. There's All Things Considered on NPR did a whole segment on them too. So it's an interesting segment. But But yeah, look, that is the live stream plus Patreon is a thing that we've also done with Sweet Crude, who also got a great All Things Considered episode as well when they released their album. But yeah, there's been a lot around that we've tried to do.
You may have already answered this question, but what would you say has been the best use of time and energy for your artists during the pandemic?
Learning new skills. There are artists that we manage that are staying afloat right now by the skin of their teeth, and those are the ones that are having the most success. But Sweet Crude, for example, has become like incredible at not at live streaming themselves, but then like they're the ones that are running Freeda's live stream from the garden. And it's like they've gotten all this extra technology and this know-how from doing it themselves that they're also able to partner and find new work, just helping out in different ways.
Is that a gig for them basically? Like that's a paid job?
Yeah.
They're the production staff for the Sweet. That's great. That's so smart.
Yeah, and but because of that, then like it's also enabled them to record. They'll be able to do their own music videos now. For way cheaper, if not for free. Whereas in the past, you might hire out those vendors, but now we have that gear ourselves. We've got we've figured out how to use our audio equipment better. And so it's been a thing of learning how to develop new skills. I mean, if you can't go out and tour, what else are you? How do you pivot? So again, like in Freeda's case, it's like now we've always talked about making a cookbook, for example, but now Freeda's having to learn all these recipes or remember all these recipes from childhood or whatever it is, and we're writing everything down. And it's like by the time the end of this year comes, we've got everything we need for a cookbook. So
okay.
That has been the best use of time. It has just been, it's hard when you make all of your money, typically, or a lot of it, based on large groups of people getting together.
You said something a minute ago. You're talking about how you focus more on the live experience, and I realized that some artists might be a great songwriter, but maybe they're not as great at building a community at a show. Somebody might be super technically savvy. Everyone's got their different strengths and weaknesses. It seems like the pandemic's going to reward people who are creative and also very comfortable and skilled at using technology to reach people.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. And it's going to reward people, again, that are able to lean into it and embrace how they can reach more people with technology. Again, so like to go back to like for Freedia. So one thing, the next step that we're trying to do is take the same concept that we're doing with cooking, and when it's appropriate, we're talking to the city, we're talking also to City Park because they do have a stage in their botanical gardens as well. If we can set something up where we're selling socially distanced tickets, so like you spray paint, like soccer field style, like a big circle, and that's circle 1, and over here circle 2, and over here circle 3, and depending on how close it is to the stage is how much you sell it for, and you can sell it by 4 people or whatever. Like you 4 people are in circle 1, you can't leave unless you go to the bathroom, and you've got security making sure people stay socially distant. So in those instances, you can't sell that many tickets, like even if we're outside on a big lawn, we might be able to sell 100 tickets at best, right? Whereas like even inside at a small club, you can do at least 200, but we're used to selling 1,000 tickets. But point is, you do that, you sell to people in the real world. Hopefully there's merch or other things that you can sell on site to upcharge people. And but then, so let's say those real world tickets are $35 or $30 because there's only so many to go around. So you price them a little bit higher. But then you live stream it, but you sell that stream for $10 to get in.
What's the mechanics of selling the stream? You have to, instead of just putting it on Facebook, you have to do it through a paid platform?
Yes, and there's tons of those that are popping up.
What's the best one? What's your favorite one that you guys use?
Well, there's a company in town called Stage It. I mean, they're not based in town. They now have staff in New Orleans that are working with venues, and they're going and installing cameras at these venues for free. So again, like, they want to try and help the venues make money now and just pay back those cameras over time. But to me, the real model here, the real play for venues is to figure out like how you can sell a live stream experience for people that may want to see it, but they can't get a babysitter that night. Or, this man or woman's 70 years old, so they only go to concerts so much, but they love this artist and they'd love to pay to live stream it, instead of going to a show. And if you start having, again, you'll never replace that energy that you get in person. So people will still buy tickets, but what if you, again, tickets to, whatever show at House of Blues are $25, but you could also, for $10, pay and stream it. And venues are able to make a little bit more money, and artists, that way. And so, again, I want to try and do that on our own terms first, but I think that is if I was a venue, that's what I would be looking towards right now in terms of trying to figure out ways to be more profitable after the pandemic's over.
Well, it's good you mentioned the venues, because my last question is to think about how it's not just the artists, it's the venues, it's the labels, it's all the different pieces of this ecosystem. What's your projection for where we're going to go and how people are going to fare over the next, couple of quarters? Yeah,
I can only speak for where we are. We are doing everything in our power between trying to generate revenue, to qualify for whatever government money we can, to figure out ways to make it to the other side. That is like our sole focus. It's different for different sectors of the industry. Venues are in particular in such a tight spot because you've got rent or mortgages attached to those, and they're not cheap. And that's a really, really tough situation to be in. So some of those venues won't make it to the other side. Frankly, I'm a part of one. I started Gasa Gasa with a few other people in town, and we're hoping to have it sold by next week. We've been on the market for only a couple weeks. We got a bunch of buyers. We've got odds are that we'll be sold in a week or two, And so that means hopefully Gasa Gasa will still make it to the other side. It's just it won't be under the same ownership. And I think that's going to happen with a lot. When this stuff does come back, I am optimistic. I really do think for anyone that is able to make it to the other side, there will be a lot of opportunity. Tank and the Bangas did a drive-in concert about a month ago, and it was the first one in the series that happened over at the UNO Lakefront Arena. Okay. And I just remember going there that day and being so, I don't know what was going on with me that day, but I was really lethargic and was just man, my partners have it covered. I don't even need to be there necessarily. But I'm just I need to go. I need to see what a drive-in concert looks like in person. And then I'm there, and I knew this, but I felt so good once I was actually in the presence of live music. And it was, I just forgot what medicine it is. Truly, there is something so innate about being human and being a part of that figurative drum circle, if you will. That there's something about us that needs to be out singing songs as a community together. That is so uniquely human, that goes back to when we started speaking, and it helped me put my work in perspective and know that it does, again, when you work in entertainment, obviously somebody that's out teaching kids or is an EMT or whatever, they're doing some real concrete, noble work. And it's nice to remember your connection to humanity and what you're helping provide other people as well. And I really felt it in that moment of knowing wow, this matters. and I cannot wait for this to be over and for human beings to actually be able to dance and sing together.
Reid Martin, thank you for being a guest.
No problem, Rich. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biz Talks. If you like what you hear each week, don't forget to rate us and leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. And follow us on social media at Biz New Orleans. For more information or to contact us, please visit bizneworleans.com/biztalks.